Hi, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. I want to try and get to 1 million subscribers. Thank you. One of the most haunting things about the case you're going to hear is the complete lack of identity of the victim. No one came forward to say that they were missing her, and to this day she is still unidentified. She has become known as the Vernon County Jane Doe. In November of 1988, a helium-filled balloon was found tangled in a barbed wire fence, and then, a few days later, the body of a woman. In the early morning hours of November 7, 1988, a passerby made a grim discovery on Old Line Road. This road is located in the rural town of Vernon County, Wisconsin, and at the time of the discovery, the area was densely wooded and isolated. At approximately 6:20 a.m., the passerby came across the nude body of an adult woman lying in the middle of the road. The passerby was so shocked at the discovery that he immediately turned around and drove home. In a panic, he called the police to report what he had found. The police and medical personnel were soon on the scene. The first officers who arrived noted that her body was cold to the touch, indicating that she had likely been dead for several hours by the time she was found. No clothing or personal items were found with her body. An examination of the crime scene revealed some haunting details. Tire tracks were visible on the paved road, suggesting that a vehicle had been driven into the area and had possibly stopped abruptly. The woman was found lying completely nude in the middle of the road. Her body was not dumped at the location, but dragged to where she was found, causing some skin abrasions. There were no defense wounds recorded, meaning that she likely made no attempt to fight off her attacker. The removal of the woman's hands was thought to have been carried out with a sharp implement by someone with experience in cutting through human tissue. The only item found near the body was a balloon that had been tangled in a barbed wire fence and discovered by a local resident in the early morning hours of November the 4th. A post-mortem has revealed several key details. The woman was described as being white and was estimated to be between 50 and 65 years of age at the time of her death. She was around 5 feet and 5 inches tall and weighed approximately 150 pounds. The pathologist determined that the woman had likely been dead for several hours before being found. The cause of death was ruled as strangulation. The woman had no tattoos, no visible birthmarks, and no visible scars. She wore no jewelry at the time her body was discovered, except for one ring. The ring was gold and had the number 1969 inscribed onto it, along with some initials that were not written clearly. The woman had no natural teeth, and instead wore a full upper and lower set of dentures. She was determined to have had them for a while, as her mouth had adapted to them. The woman's ears... Sorry. I'm trying to find if my microphone is picking up my voice because the volume is really low, and I think it might not be. I'm going to just swap it for a new one now, just in case. Right, so I'll be using a new microphone now. I hope you can hear me now. The woman's ears were pierced, but no earrings were found at the scene, and none were found with her body. These details gave the investigators a clear picture of who the woman was, but frustratingly, her identity could not be determined. She was dubbed the Vernon County Jane Doe. A Jane Doe is an unidentified female, and a John Doe is an unidentified male. These terms are used in many countries. Whoever had killed the woman had taken with them and destroyed any article of clothing on her body, and they had done this in an attempt to prevent identification. The sheriff in charge of the case speculated that the woman was killed somewhere else, where it would be quieter, and her body was later brought to this location and dumped. It would have taken 2 people to drag her body from the car to the spot where she was found, meaning that there was at least one other person involved. The murder was thought to have happened sometime after 10:30 p.m. on the 6th of November. The exact motive of the murder remains a mystery. No weapons were left at the scene, and it seemed that whoever had killed the woman had made a serious attempt to erase any evidence that could link them to the crime. The removal of the woman's hands was thought to have been carried out with a sharp implement by someone with experience in cutting through human tissue, And the killer had also taken the woman's clothing and her purse, preventing her identification. Any labels, tags, or identifying features had been removed from the clothing, hinting that this was a deliberate act by the killer to make identification impossible. It is possible that the woman was killed outside of Wisconsin and brought to the location to confuse the investigation. The day after the body was found, a local resident came forward to the police and said that he had seen something suspicious on the night of the murder. He told the police that he had seen a man near Old Line Road, an area that is extremely dark and deserted. The time was around 11 p.m. and he described seeing a man at the dead end of Old Line Road near a farm. He stated that when he drove past, the man looked up at him, and he described him as acting strangely. When the witness returned to his car after making the call, the man was gone. However, a yellow compact car was seen parked near Old Line Road around that time, which was not a common sight for that area, which was and is extremely rural. He also said that he had seen the yellow car parked in the same area on the 5th of November, the night before the murder. On both occasions, the car was driven by a white male. Now, it should be noted that the man described in these two encounters was not definitively linked to the murder of the woman, and there is no concrete evidence that the yellow car or its driver was involved in the crime. Whoever had killed this woman was able to escape and avoid detection, likely due to the careful steps they took to conceal their tracks. The case of the Vernon County Jane Doe is incredibly frustrating. Two people were likely involved in her murder, and one of those people saw a man who possibly took her life. And it is possible that the person who killed her is now identified as the person who killed another woman, and I'll get into that a little later on into the video. The woman had spent her last moments on this earth so alone. No one came forward to even say they were missing her. A haunting indicator that she had no one in her life to miss her. Despite evidence being presented to the public in the years since her death, nobody stepped forward, leading me to believe that this woman likely had no family. In 2015, the Wisconsin Department of Justice set up a website for this very case. The woman's remains were exhumed to carry out a DNA analysis. In the years since her murder, her case had been reopened numerous times, but every lead the police pursued ended in failure. And then, in 2018, her partial remains were examined by a forensic anthropologist who were able to provide more details about her appearance and her history. They were able to reveal the details that I mentioned earlier. And then in 2024, the Wisconsin Department of Justice released a new forensic sketch of the woman in hopes it triggers someone's memory. With the latest advanced technology, a new facial reconstruction was created for this woman. Sometime in the last 35 years, this woman had to have interacted with someone who knew she was missing. Someone, somewhere out there, likely has a hole in their life, and they've likely come to the realization that she is never coming home. I find these kinds of cases heartbreaking, as the lack of information means that this woman never had anyone who cared about her enough to ensure her killer was caught. And now she has been thrown into the abyss of the unknown. The only thing keeping this woman from having her name, and the only thing keeping the people who did this from being caught, is a name, and now this woman has been given a face. In 2015, the remains of a woman were found on a property in West Virginia. The woman became known as the Bitter Creek Jane Doe. The body of the woman was exhumed in August of 2023, and according to the investigators working on the case, the two women are a genetic match and were related. The two Jane Does are mothers, and they have a child that has been identified. Now, when this news came to light, the investigators became incredibly confident that the mystery of the 1988 Vernon County Jane Doe would soon be solved. However, things are not so simple, and the investigators soon realized that the woman they thought was linked to the 1985 cold case, Calthy's Clues, is actually not linked to the 2015 Jane Doe case after all. Calthy's Clues is a fascinating case with some very strange twists and turns. A man took a photo of Calthy, and when the film was developed, her body appeared in the background. and her body had been there for some time, with the twist being that she was actually murdered before the photo taking place. This was the very first forensic image of its kind, but there is no evidence linking Calthy and the 1988 Jane Doe. The name of the woman has not yet been identified, and the crime remains a mystery. I found this case after seeing a post on Reddit, with people speculating as to her identity. One name that kept popping up was Victoria Ann Elizabeth Johnson, otherwise known as the 1985 case Calthy's Clues. So if you wish to learn more about this fascinating case, I'll leave a link in the description.